Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Legislative Weekly, a show meant to help you stay up to date on what your government has been up to. I'm your host, John Woo, and I would like to welcome you to our very first episode of the year 2019. So, first up today, we have Bill 427, which is meant to establish a special advisory committee to advise the Minister of Agriculture on agricultural innovations. Now, the whole idea behind this bill is that it'll bring together various stakeholders. According to the text, this will include stakeholders such as the agriculture and agri-food sectors, the scientific community, the various provinces, and of course the Department of Agriculture. Now, by bringing these stakeholders together, the idea is that they'll be better able to advise the Minister of Agriculture on how to continue fostering innovation. Now, the nice part about this bill is that there is a no remuneration clause in it. So anyone who is put on the committee, who has to show up to these committee meetings about twice a year, they are entitled to no money. Personally, I think this is more than fair. I mean, these people are getting a seat at the table at what's to be a very, very valuable lobbying opportunity for sure. Frankly, these people should be happy to get this opportunity to lobby for the changes they want and to contribute to the Canadian agricultural industry without taking the taxpayers' dollars. It should be worth noting that this bill is a private member's bill introduced by the Honorable T.J. Harvey from Tobique over in New Brunswick. So yeah, the odds of it actually getting passed, I do think this bill is actually a pretty good idea. You're bringing together more people with more expertise and at what will hopefully be a minimal cost to the taxpayer. Next up, we have a bill which is being introduced by the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Multiculturalism, this being Bill C-91. A big thing that this bill will do is it will actually establish an office of the Commissioner of Indigenous Languages. The main duties of this commissioner, according to the text of the bill, is to support the efforts of Indigenous people in reclaiming, revitalizing, maintaining, and strengthening their various languages, undertaking a wide variety of different research in how to better support Indigenous languages, and yes, there will of course be an annual report on the use and vitality of Indigenous languages in Canada. In addition to creating the Office of the Commissioner of Indigenous Languages, this bill also does make it so that the government officially recognizes in statute form the rights of Indigenous peoples under Section 35. Section 35 is the section of the Canadian Constitution that relates to Indigenous rights. Now, it does cover quite a lot of things ranging from treaty rights to language, but in this specific context, it is interesting that it also does include this idea of a duty to consult. Recently, the Supreme Court actually gutted this whole idea of a duty to consult by making it so that it only applies to the executive branch and not the legislative one. So it is quite interesting that, yeah, right after that court decision, this bill is coming out. I'm not entirely clear on what the sort of dynamics are behind it. If any of you have any idea on what it might mean, please feel free to share it in the comments. But last but not least, we have Bill C-428, which will amend the Income Tax Act so that parents will be able to write off fitness expenses for their child. Now, the idea here is that if you are a parent who enrolls your child in an athletic program, and it does have to be approved, not sure on what the parameters are for that, but any sort of spending you put into this program, whether it's in enrollment or training or in equipment and uniforms or even space rental, you'll be able to receive a tax credit for this on your next income tax. Personally, I think this is a fantastic idea for a bill. I mean, not only does it reward parents who enroll their kids in athletics, but it also allows some kids who potentially might not have gotten this chance due to financial constraints, the opportunity to do so. Parents will potentially be able to now afford these programs for their kids because of the savings through the tax credit. Now, this is a private member's bill, and it's being put forth by a which should be a fairly familiar name, the Honorable Kelly Leach. Dr. Leach is a fairly famous pediatric surgeon who, rather infamously, ran for conservative leadership in the last election as a sort of Canadian version of Trump. You might not be totally for her politics. Frankly, I'm not the biggest fan of it either. But at the same time, I do recommend that you take a look at this bill independently of all that. I mean, for all her flaws as a politician, Dr. Leach is a very accomplished doctor. And frankly, I think this is actually a really great initiative which could not only help a lot of families and kids, but also bring about a bunch of long-lasting benefits to Canada's healthcare system. So if you are in support of this bill, I recommend you reach out to your local MP, let them know of your support. That is Bill C-428. I know I certainly will. Once again, this is Legislative Weekly with your host, John Woo. I hope you'll tune in next time, where we'll be continuing to update you on exactly what your government has been up to.